Now, there's no question at all that Hollywood action hero Ryan Gosling will be bringing tourists to Australia. The footage of him cavorting across Sydney's Harbour Bridge over the weekend caused a bit of a stir here because, of course, Violet Coco, a protester, has been sentenced to 15 months jail for shutting down one lane of the Sydney Harbour Bridge when the Americans from NBC shut the whole bridge down for quite a few hours. But the question is this. We always hear these grandiose figures about millions and millions being created. In this case, they're saying this Hollywood movie, The Fall Guy, in which Ryan Gosling is the star, will create $244 million in economic benefits. Now, is that true? Who knows? But what we do know is the subsidies. The subsidies are about $15 million from the New South Wales state government and about $30 million from the feds under their location incentive scheme. So we're giving them tens of billions of dollars. Now, just that $45 million, how many local Australian productions could that have financed? Even at the luxurious budget of $5 million in indie production, that's 9 Australian stories. We could have told 9 Australian stories being filmed by the creative crews from Australia rather than from Hollywood, telling Australian stories for Australian audiences using Australian expertise and creative talent. But instead, we're financing, with these lavish expenditures, American stories for American and global audiences. Now, there's no doubt that the tourist money will probably come in, but the question is, have we just given away the idea of having proper local film industry in Australia, telling Australian stories? Now, that $45 million that we can see in subsidies here is only the tip of the iceberg. It might be just as much again in tax breaks under what's called QAPE, Qualifying Australian Production Expenditure Tax Breaks. A lot of the economic activity for these programs is invoiced directly offshore to NBC, Universal Studio, whoever it is, Disney or one of the others. So the money, most of the economic activity goes offshore, and of course the profits from the movie go offshore as well. Now, there's the argument about thousands of jobs being created. These are always exaggerated numbers, of course, because we're talking about extras that might be paid for 4 days' work and things like that. In the case of this movie, The Fall Guy, the production team, the American creative team, is running the show. There are some Australians on it, but it's entirely dominated by Americans that are out here. Yes, they're spending their money in restaurants and that sort of stuff, or is it our money that we're subsidising them with? But the question is, what real economic benefits accrue here to the Australian people? You know, we do know that there will be a lot of tradies jobs, things like carpenters and set designers and people like that, and people providing location services and advising on local issues. But the fact is, the upskilling of the Australian industry is just not really happening here because it's dominated by Americans telling their American story. Now, The Fall Guy is not alone here. There's a bunch of them at the moment. In fact, it's a bit hard to find the numbers, but we've tallied up about $380 million in SPV, special purpose vehicle funding, $380 million in tax breaks. Let's have a look at some of the other ones at the moment. There's the Melbourne production of Metropolis, which is a remake of a German sci-fi movie from the 1920s. That's also Hollywood driven. That's also Universal NBC. So the benefits will predominantly accrue to a foreign movie studio in Hollywood. So the Victorian government and the feds are claiming $416 million going back into the Victorian economy from Metropolis, 3,980 local jobs. But at what cost? How much could this $120 million odd have created in local content? That's the question. The cost-benefit analysis is not there. Russell Crowe's Poker Face is another one. It's a story about an American billionaire playing poker for American audiences. Yes, there were some nice shots of Australia in it, but what benefit really is that to the Australian local film production sector? Probably not that much. Now, Russell Crowe, of course, I'm a fan. He's a devoutly Australian guy, and no doubt he's doing his best for the country. But the fact is, where are the benefits? Now, the Australian government is soon to come out with its content quotas policy. That's Arts Minister Tony Burke's big policy on the Australian production. Will there be changes, significant changes to local content? Or will the cultural cringe persist while we finance foreign movie studios to make their foreign content in Australia, giving them huge state and federal subsidies and tax breaks as well? According to one source in the film industry, leadership of the film industry in Australia does not believe in Australians telling Australian stories. There is no belief. They would rather just hand buckets of money to Americans. Here at the West Report, we are creating Australian content for Australian audiences, so we thank you very much for your support